New Year's Eve has always been billed as the most sacred night of the year. Time for fresh starts, family bonds, and celebration. But in the Jeffrey family estate, tucked away in a gated community just outside Atlanta, Georgia, that night turned into a nightmare I would never forget. The air was thick with the aroma of Southern holiday cooking, roast duck sizzling in the oven, collard greens simmering on the stove, candied yams glistening with brown sugar, and my homemade potato salad chilling in the fridge. I had spent hours in the kitchen, chopping vegetables the old-fashioned way, pickles, potatoes, carrots, mixing them with Duke's mayonnaise, just like my Big Mama had taught me back home. No shortcuts, no fancy ingredients. Tradition mattered in this house, or at least that's what they always said. Outside the kitchen window, the yard was alive with holiday cheer. Strings of garland lights twinkled on the massive oak tree, and the family dog, a hyper-golden retriever named Buster, was racing around the lawn, barking excitedly at the kids waving sparklers. Fireworks were already popping in the distance, painting the night sky in bursts of red, gold, and blue. The big family home was buzzing with voices, uncles telling their loud, belly-shaking jokes, aunts gossiping about the latest church scandals or neighborhood drama, cousins introducing their new partners, and the nephews running wild, having already knocked over and broken one of Mother Odessa's precious Christmas ornaments and quickly blaming it on the cat, of course. For 5 long years, I had been Zariah Jeffrey, the dutiful daughter-in-law in this sprawling family. I married Kalen Jeffrey straight out of college, full of dreams and what I thought was love. He was quiet, unassuming, with a gentle smile that made me feel safe at first. But over time, I learned to mold myself into the perfect wife they expected, silent when insulted, enduring every slight, smiling through the pain until my jaw ached from the effort. I convinced myself it was worth it, for the family peace, for Callan, for the life we were building. Lord, how naive I was. Mother Odessa, Kalen's mother and the undisputed queen of the household, peeked into the kitchen that evening, her sharp eyes scanning my work like a hawk. "Our Zariah is so good and hard-working," she cooed loudly enough for the relatives in the living room to hear. "She's taken so many worries off my shoulders. Pure gold, this one." I lowered my head, forcing that practiced smile onto my face. "Thank you, Mother Odessa," I murmured. But inside, bitterness churned. Just 1 week earlier, at the DeKalb Farmers Market, this same woman had humiliated me in front of strangers over a simple mistake with peaches. I had picked clingstone peaches instead of freestone for her famous cobbler recipe. "Are you completely brainless?" she had screamed, her voice echoing across the stalls. "Who bakes a cobbler with those? Clingstones don't pit clean. You'll ruin the whole thing." The peanut vendor nearby had gone silent, staring awkwardly as shoppers turned to watch the spectacle. I stood there, cheeks burning, apologizing profusely while she ranted on. But now, with guests filling the house and the holiday spirit in full swing, the facade was back in place. We had to present the image of a perfect, united family. The show must go on, no matter the cost. In the living room, sprawled on the deep cherry-red leather sofa beneath a massive painting of a savanna, landscape, sunset over the river, a steamboat gliding by, seagulls in flight, sat my sister-in-law, Tina. She was beautiful in a subdued way, with soft features and always perfectly styled hair. But there was something dim about her, like a light bulb that never quite shone at full brightness. Next to her sat her husband, Timane, a man who demanded attention the moment he entered a room. Extroverted, smooth-talking, dressed in a tailored suit even for a casual family dinner, flashing that perfect 32-tooth smile. He owned a successful construction supply firm, drove a shiny black Range Rover, and was the golden boy in Mother Odessa's eyes. She constantly held him up as the example of what a real man should be. "Look at Timane," she'd say to Kalan right in front of me. "That's a go-getter. Successful, ambitious, not driving around in that beat-up old Honda like some folks." Callan, my husband, would just mumble something and look away. He took after his late father in temperament, quiet, non-confrontational, but without the quiet strength his dad had possessed. Callan was a doormat, especially when it came to his mother. I carried out the crystal, bowl of potato salad, vintage, china from Mother Odessa's prized collection, and arranged the appetizers on the dining table. The collard greens steamed invitingly. The candied yams shone under the chandelier light. My hands full with a tray of cold cuts, I left my phone on the edge of the table and hurried back to the kitchen for the main attraction, the roast duck, golden brown and stuffed with apples and fresh herbs. When I returned, platter in hand, something was wrong. Callan was standing there, holding my phone, his face transformed. Moments ago, it had been festive. Flushed from his first glass of bourbon, eyes sparkling with holiday cheer. Now it was stone cold, the smile wiped away as if erased. "Callan, what's wrong?" I asked softly, setting the duck down carefully. "Did something happen?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked silently into the living room, where the extended family was gathered. Around the massive flat-screen TV watching the Times Square countdown, a chill crawled down my spine, that instinctive feeling when you know disaster is brewing. The clock ticked closer to midnight. On TV, the massive crowd in New York chanted the final seconds. 10, 9, 8. Champagne flutes clinked as everyone jumped up, laughing and hugging. "Happy New Year!" Voices shouted over the fireworks exploding outside our windows. Someone started a toast. "Wait a minute." Callan barked suddenly, his voice rough and unfamiliar, like rusty hinges creaking open. The room fell quiet. He beckoned me over with a sharp gesture, then slammed my phone down on the table so hard it skidded across the festive tablecloth, nearly toppling a crystal glass. "Explain yourself. Who is this man texting you at midnight?" "You're cheating on me." I froze, my mind reeling. On the phone screen glowed a simple message from my boss, Mr. Sterling. "Zariah, wishing you and your family a Happy New Year, all the best." It was a generic corporate greeting sent via telegram to the entire team, even to Ms. Hattie, our 60-year-old accountant. "Callan, that's my boss," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper as blood drained from my face. He sent holiday wishes to everyone. "It's a mass text. You can check the group chat." What kind of boss texts a married woman on New Year's night? Mother Odessa appeared beside him like a shadow. Her eyes narrowed to slits, voice sharp as a knife. "I knew it from the day you walked in here. That face of yours can't be trusted. One of those women who plays faithful but runs around behind her husband's back. Gutter trash." The room spun. Was this really happening? On New Year's Eve in front of 20 relatives? "Mama's right," Keena chimed in, smirking from the sofa. "She thinks she's some beauty queen. No wonder men are buzzing around her." Poor Callan, wearing those horns must be heavy. I turned pleading eyes to my husband. "Callan, you know me. 5 years together. Have I ever given you reason to doubt?" He said nothing, jaw muscles twitching. Then he turned and walked to the corner, where an old leather belt hung on the wall, his grandfather's, a family relic with a heavy, darkened metal buckle. Callan had once confessed, drunk one night, how he'd been disciplined with it as a child. Now he lifted it down. The creak of leather filled the silent room, dry and ominous. "On your knees," he hissed, eyes bloodshot. "Get on your knees in front of the family, in front of Pop's portrait, and confess." How many times? Tears streamed hot down my cheeks. My body trembled. "I didn't do anything. I swear." No one intervened. Not Uncle Marcus, shrinking into his armchair. Not Aunt Lucille, averting her eyes. Not a single soul spoke up. Mother Odessa watched with a triumphant gleam. Then something inside me snapped, not broke, but hardened like ice cracking under pressure. 5 years of patience, love, endurance crumbled. My hand slipped into my cardigan pocket, fingers closing around the small black flash drive I'd kept hidden for months. For a moment like this, I straightened, wiped my tears, and met Callan's eyes. He flinched at whatever he saw there. Slowly, I walked to the TV, plugged in the drive, and grabbed the remote. "What are you doing?" Mother Odessa sneered. I pressed play. The screen filled with footage. From our own security cameras, the ones Mother Odessa had insisted on installing for safety. And there, on that same cherry-red sofa, were Mother Odessa and T-Main. Entangled in a way that left no doubt. The room erupted into chaos. The belt dropped from Callan's hand. Fireworks boomed outside, but inside, dead silence turned to gasps, then shouts. The truth was out, and my long submissive life in this family was over. The bluish glow from the massive flat screen, TV bathed the living room in an eerie light, cutting through the festive warmth like a cold blade. On the screen, frozen in high definition, was the unmistakable image of Mother Odessa, Callan's mother, the matriarch who ruled this house with an iron fist, and T-Main, Kina's husband, the family's golden son-in-law, tangled together on the very cherry-red leather sofa where they had been, sitting innocently just minutes ago. The timestamp in the corner read clearly, 3 months earlier, 2:17 p.m., on a quiet Tuesday afternoon when most of the family was out. For a split second, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Outside, fireworks continued to explode in brilliant cascades, reds, golds, greens lighting up the Georgia sky. But inside the Jeffrey family estate, time stopped. The champagne flutes that had been raised in celebration now hung forgotten in trembling hands. The clatter of the leather belt hitting the parquet floor still echoed in my ears. A dull, final thud that marked the moment everything changed. I stood there with the remote in my hand, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. But my voice was steady, surprisingly steady. "Well," I said, letting my eyes sweep slowly across the room, meeting every shocked face one by one. "Does this remind anyone of anything? Because there's hours more footage, weeks of it. Different angles, even some with sound. Should I keep the screening going?" Mother Odessa made a strangled sound. Half howl, half growl, like an animal caught in a trap. Her face, usually so composed and commanding, had drained of all color, turning the shade of cold ashes. She gripped the arm of the sofa so tightly her knuckles went white, as if letting go would mean collapsing entirely. Her lips moved soundlessly at first, then words tumbled out in a ragged whisper. You were spying. You little—" "It's your camera system, Mother Odessa," I cut in calmly, surprising even myself with how level my tone was. "The one you had installed after those robberies down the street. Remember? For safety, you said. You made me set it all up, because I was the only one young enough to understand the technology. You gave me full access to the app, the passwords, the archives. And when your gold chain went missing, you personally asked me to go through the recordings to see if the cleaning lady, Miss Hattie, had taken it. I did exactly what you asked. I just found something else." Timaine, still in his perfectly tailored suit, had gone slick with sweat. A bead rolled down his temple as he stammered. This is edited. Fake. Deep-fake AI garbage. That's not me." But his voice cracked, and everyone in the room knew better. The scorpion tattoo on his shoulder blade, the one he loved showing, off at family beach trips, was clearly visible. The distinctive mole on Mother Odessa's left shoulder, the one we'd all seen 100 times in summer dresses, stared back at us from the screen. The date and timestamp glowed accusingly. No AI could fabricate those details so perfectly. Kina, my sister-in-law, sat frozen on the sofa like a statue. Her eyes, usually a little vacant, a little distant, were now wide with raw horror. She stared at the screen, then slowly turned her head to look at her husband, then at her own mother. Tears welled up and spilled down her cheeks without a sound. She didn't blink, didn't wipe them away. For the first time in 5 years, I felt a pang of genuine sympathy for her. She had just watched her entire world shatter in front of 20 relatives. On New Year's Eve, Callan, my husband of 5 years, stood as if turned to stone. The belt lay at his feet like a dead thing. His face had gone from rage red to ghost pale. His mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words came. He looked at his mother, then at Timaine, then back at the screen as though trying to reconcile. The people he'd known his whole life with the betrayal playing out in front of him. Uncle Marcus, the loudest jokester in the family, sat with his mouth hanging open, a half-eaten deviled egg forgotten in his hand. Aunt Lucille clutched at her chest, whispering, Lord Jesus, under her breath like a prayer. Cousin Tavan let his champagne flute slip from his fingers. It hit the floor and shattered, crystal spraying across the hardwood, but no one even flinched. The children, sensing the shift in the air, had gone unnaturally quiet in the corner. Mother Odessa suddenly lunged forward, grabbing a heavy crystal vase from the coffee table. The same vintage one I'd used for flowers earlier that evening. "I'll smash this damn TV!" she shrieked, raising it over her head. "And I'll smash you, you wretched, scheming—" But Kina moved faster than I'd ever seen her move. She shot up from the sofa and caught her mother's wrist mid-swing, stopping the vase inches from the screen. "Enough, Mama," Kina said, her voice trembling but edged with something new, steel. "Enough." It was the first time I'd ever heard her stand up to Mother Odessa. The room went even quieter, if that was possible. Kina turned to Timaine, who had sunk to his knees in the middle of the living room. suit pants pooling around him. "How could you?" she whispered, tears streaming freely now. "With my own mother?" In our house, Timane crawled toward her on his knees, grabbing at her legs like a drowning man. "Kay, baby sunshine, listen, it wasn't like that. She seduced me. Your mama came onto me. I'm the victim here. She threatened—" Mother Odessa let out an enraged screech. "Me threaten you? You lying dog? You were the one sneaking over here every time Kina left town for work. You told me your wife was cold in bed, that you only felt like a real man with me. And now you're pinning this on me?" The two of them erupted into a screaming match, accusations flying like knives. It turned out the affair had been going on for nearly 2 years. It turned out Timane had landed a major city contract through Mother Odessa's old connections, strings, pulled from her late husband's days in local politics. It turned out they had whispered about a future together once Kina was out of the picture. Every sordid detail spilled out in front of uncles, aunts, cousins, and grandchildren. Right between the platter of roast duck and the bowl of collard greens, the relatives watched in stunned silence, free front row seats to a drama no television show could match. I stood back, arms crossed, letting it all unfold. For 5 years I had swallowed insult after insult, stayed silent, played the perfect daughter-in-law. Now the truth was doing the talking for me. Finally, Callan seemed to come back to life. He took a shaky step toward his mother, looked at her with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, disgust mixed with bewildered grief, like staring at roadkill that used to be someone you loved. Then he turned to me. "Zariah, His voice cracked. I cut him off gently but firmly. "Want to apologize? Save it, Callan. You're her son. You grew up in this house. Are you really going to stand there and tell me you noticed nothing? Not one late-night visit? Not one suspicious phone call? Or did you notice and just stay quiet because it was easier? Because confronting your mama has never been your strong suit?" He flinched as if I'd slapped him, but he didn't deny it. Then Uncle Elijah, the eldest in the family, the only one, whose words still carried real weight, slammed his big fist on the dining table. Plates rattled, glasses jumped. "Quiet!" he thundered. "All of you, quiet. You've turned this house into a damn circus on the Lord's New Year." A hush fell. Only Kina's soft sobbing and Mother Odessa's ragged breathing broke the silence. Uncle Elijah turned to me, his stern face softening. "Zariah, baby girl, I got no words for how wrong this is. On behalf of this family, I apologize to you. You've been wronged tonight, grievously." Then he turned to Callan, eyes hardening again. "And you, nephew, how in God's name did you let this happen? Raising a belt to your wife over a simple holiday text from her boss? You out your natural mind? Your daddy, Big Callan, would be turning in his grave right now." He paused, looking around the room. "This is family business. We handle it in the family. Callan, you gonna apologize proper to your wife. No more of this foolishness tonight. And these two," he jerked his head toward Mother Odessa and Timane, "we'll deal with separately." Everyone turned to look at me, waiting for the obedient nod they were used to. Waiting for me to smooth it over, wipe my tears, and go back to serving dessert like a good daughter-in-law. I met Uncle Elijah's eyes respectfully. "Thank you for your kind words." "Uncle?" "Truly, but I've made my decision." I took a deep breath. "I'm filing for divorce." The silence that followed was deeper than any before. Callan jerked like he'd been shot. "Zariah, no, please, I was an idiot." "I see that now. Give me a chance to make it right." "A chance?" My voice stayed calm, but there was ice in it. "How many chances did I give you, Callan? Every time your mother called me worthless in front of company, silence. Every time she ordered me around like hired help, silence. Every time I begged you to just talk to her, set some boundaries, silence. And tonight you chose a belt over trusting your own wife. In that moment, whatever love I had left for you died. And it's not coming back." I looked around at the rest of them. Copies of these recordings are already with my lawyer and backed up in secure places. If anyone tries to pressure me, drag this out, or interfere with the divorce, the footage goes to court. And then a judge can decide who's owed what. Mother Odessa made another strangled noise, but no one paid her any mind. That same night, while the rest of the family sat in stunned clusters whispering, I went upstairs and packed a single suitcase. It didn't take long. I'd brought so little of my own into this house. Mother Odessa had reminded me constantly that everything here was hers. The furniture, the dishes, even the pots and pans. Fine, she could keep them. Callan followed me to the bedroom door, blocking it with his body. His eyes were red, face swollen. Zariah, wait, let's talk, please. We should have talked years ago, Kaylin. 5 years of chances. You didn't hear a single one. I stepped around him. He slid down the wall, grabbing at my knees. I can't live without you. You're everything to me. I looked down at him for a long moment. If I was everything to you, why didn't you ever defend me? Why did I always feel like an unpaid servant in someone else's house? You don't love me. Kalan, you love the convenience of a wife who stays quiet and takes it. But I'm done. I pried his hands away, called an Uber, and walked out into the cold January air. The fireworks had stopped. The neighborhood was quiet except for distant celebrations. My friend Nia opened her door at 3 a.m., took one look at my suitcase and tear-streaked face, and silently put the kettle on for mint tea. That's real family. The divorce was finalized in just over a month. The Jeffrey family didn't contest a thing. They were too terrified the recordings would leak. I walked away with half our joint savings, about $60,000 plus my share of the car, which Callan quietly bought out. Clean break. No scandals, no drawn-out court battles. And as I stepped into my new life, I could already feel the weight lifting, the weight of 5 years of silence, of pretending, of shrinking myself to fit their mold. But the storm inside that house was only beginning. The first few weeks after leaving, the Jeffrey family estate felt like surfacing. After years underwater, every breath was deeper, cleaner, sharper. I woke up in Nia's spare bedroom to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar blinds. No Mother Odessa, banging on the door at 7 a.m., demanding to know why the coffee wasn't ready. No Kaylin mumbling excuses while avoiding my eyes. Just quiet. Blessed, beautiful quiet. Nia never once asked for the full story right away. She just handed me mint tea that first night. Let me cry until my ribs hurt, then said, "Stay as long as you need, sis." Couch turns into a bed, closet's half empty, and I make a mean shrimp and grits on Sundays. That was enough. Real friendship doesn't come with interrogation. By mid-January, I had rented a small, one-bedroom apartment in a modest complex off Memorial Drive in southeast Atlanta. Nothing fancy, beige carpet, white walls, a tiny balcony that overlooked a parking lot, but it was mine. The lease was in my name only. The utilities were in my name only. The key on my keyring opened only my door. For the first time in 5 years, I owned my space completely. I celebrated by buying a $12 succulent from Pike Nursery and naming it Freedom. The divorce papers were straightforward. No kids, no massive assets, no fight. My lawyer, a sharp sister named Camille, who specialized in women walking away from toxic situations, handled everything. The Jeffreys didn't contest a single line item. They knew what I had on that flash drive. I walked away with $60,000 in cash, half our joint savings, my share of the Honda, which Kaylin quietly paid out, and every personal belonging I wanted. I left behind the china, the crystal, the pots and pans Mother Odessa loved to remind me weren't mine anyway. For the first couple of months, money appeared in my account every few weeks. $500 transfers from Kalan with no message except the memo line. "I'm sorry," I never replied. Never thanked him, but I didn't send it back either. I considered it partial repayment for 5 years of unpaid emotional labor. 5 years of cooking, cleaning, hosting, mediating, and swallowing insults so his family could keep their precious peace. Therapy money, I called it. I started therapy, actually, every Thursday at 6 p.m. with Dr. Renee, a calm, no-nonsense black woman in her 50s who listened without judgment. The first session I cried for 40 minutes straight. The second I got angry. By the fourth, I started laughing at how ridiculous some of the memories were, like the time Mother Odessa made me re-iron Callan's shirts because the creases weren't crisp enough for a grown man. Dr. Renee helped me untangle the guilt I carried for breaking up the family. She reminded me, gently but firmly, that I didn't break anything. I just stopped holding the pieces together for everyone else. Work became my anchor. My old job had been fine, administrative, coordinator at a mid-sized logistics firm, but it paid barely enough to cover my half of the mortgage and groceries. Once I was free of the daily exhaustion of surviving that house, my energy returned like floodwaters. I updated my resume, took a weekend course in digital marketing analytics, and started applying aggressively. In March, I landed a marketing coordinator position at a creative agency in Midtown. Starting salary, $85,000, nearly double what I'd been making. My new boss, a laid-back white guy named Jared who wore sneakers to client meetings, told me on day one, "We hired you because your cover letter had fire. Keep that energy." I did. Within a year, I was promoted to senior coordinator, then again to marketing manager. By early 2025, I was head of the department pulling 6 figures. I bought myself a used Lexus, nothing flashy, just reliable and quiet, and paid it off in 2 years. I started running along the Beltline in the mornings, watching the sunrise over Piedmont Park, earbuds in, Beyoncé or Jill Scott or old school Mary J keeping tempo with my feet. My body got stronger. My mind got clearer. I read books again. Real books. Not just scrolling on my phone late at night to escape reality. I joined a book club at the Auburn Avenue library and found myself laughing out loud with a group of women who didn't know or care who Mother Odessa was. Meanwhile, word travels fast in Atlanta's black, middle-class circles, especially when the story is that juicy. By spring, the gossip about Mother Odessa's affair with her own son-in-law was everywhere. Beauty salons in Cascade, barbershops on Campbellton Road, church fellowship halls after Sunday service. People didn't even bother whispering anymore. "You hear about Odessa Jeffrey? Sleeping with Keena's husband right under her own roof? Lord have mercy." The family's reputation, so carefully polished for decades, cracked like cheap plaster. T-Main's downfall was swift and public. First, his city contracts dried up overnight. Nobody wanted to do business with a man whose name was synonymous with that kind of betrayal. Then the drinking started, really started. One night in late summer, drunk behind the wheel of that once pristine Range Rover, he ran a red light and struck a pedestrian crossing. Martin Luther King Drive. The man survived, but with permanent injuries. T-Main got 10 years in state prison. The pride of the Jeffrey family. The successful businessman Mother Odessa loved to brag about. Was now inmate number whatever they assigned him, wearing state blues and eating cafeteria slop. Keena took her son, little Marcus, named after his granddaddy, and moved to Houston to start over. She texted me once from there, "You opened my eyes that night. Thank you. I'm sorry for everything I said." I didn't respond right away. Eventually I wrote back, "Take care of yourself and that baby." That was enough. Mother Odessa unraveled slowly, then all at once. The queen who'd terrorized daughters-in-law and ruled her grown children, with guilt and criticism began having panic attacks, insomnia, screaming fits in the middle of the night. Kaylin, quiet, avoidant Kaylin, finally had to check her into a mental health facility in Buckhead. She spent months there, medicated, staring out windows, no longer giving orders. Some days she didn't even recognize visitors. Kaylin stayed in the big house alone at first. He sold off parcels of the land to cover his mother's treatment and Keena's moving costs. He called me constantly those first few months. I blocked the number. He switched to blocked calls, then emails, then social media messages. I blocked those too. The only thing I couldn't forgive, not the false accusation, not the belt, not even the years of silence, was the cowardice. 5 years of choosing his mother's comfort over his wife's dignity. But I knew he needed to feel the full weight of it. So I found Mr. Otis, his late father's best friend, a retired engineer who still carried himself like honor mattered. I called him, told him everything, and sent him a copy of the key footage. He was quiet for a long time on the phone, then said in a voice thick with grief, "Big Kaylin wouldn't have lived to see this day." Thank God he didn't. I asked one favor. On the anniversary of Big Kalan's death, show the video to Kalan personally. Let him see what his father would have seen. Mr. Otis did it. Late autumn, cold drizzle falling after the memorial service at the cemetery. He pulled Kalan aside, sat him down in the old study, and played the tablet. Kalan broke completely, sat in the backyard in the rain, and sobbed like a child. Mr. Otis told me later. After that, the calls stopped. One final message came through. "Forgive me." I didn't reply. But something in me understood it had finally landed. Callan sold the house the next year. Divided the proceeds, part to his mother's continued care, part to Keena and little Marcus. He moved into a small studio apartment in South Atlanta and took a job as a construction foreman. Hands-on labor, early mornings, sunburn, and calluses. The polished son of a respected family became just another working man. Unshaven, quieter than ever, aged a decade in 1 year. I kept living. In the fall of 2024, I met Idris at that same library book club. He was 6 years older, an architect recently divorced, with kind eyes and a laugh that started deep in his chest. We bonded over Toni Morrison and bad coffee from the library machine. He never pried about my past. He just asked what books made me cry, why I laughed at his corny jokes, what I wanted to plant on my tiny balcony come spring. We started walking in Piedmont Park after meetings, then grabbing coffee in Little 5 Points, then long dinners where we talked until the restaurant staff started stacking chairs. He proposed quietly on a weekday evening in 2025. No grand gesture, just us on the balcony with takeout Thai and city lights below. "I don't need fireworks, Zariah," he said. "I just need you." We married small, courthouse, then a backyard reception at Nia's house with 30 of our closest people. No belts on walls, no mother-in-law critiquing the menu, just laughter, good music, and Nia giving a toast that had everyone crying happy tears. Our daughter Cairo was born the following spring, tiny, loud, with her daddy's dimples and my stubborn curl pattern. I went back to work part-time at first, then full-time when she was ready for daycare. Idris was the kind of father who changed diapers, without being asked, and got up for 3 a.m. feedings, humming old soul songs. We bought a modest 3-bedroom condo in a good school district, close enough to the Beltline for weekend stroller walks. Life settled into small, perfect routines. Sunday pancakes with Cairo smashing blueberries on her tray, bedtime stories where Idris did all the silly voices, evening runs where I finally beat my old 5K time. We got a cat, Midnight, black with one white paw, who truly believed he owned the place. Sometimes the past still flickered across my mind, that New Year's Eve. The whistle of the belt, the frozen faces when the video played. But the memories no longer burned. They just were. Lessons paid for in full, I had forgiven, not for them, but for me. Carrying hate is heavy. I set it down so I could carry my daughter higher, laugh louder, love deeper. One Saturday at Costco, pushing a cart loaded with diapers and bulk everything, Cairo in the seat yelling, "Candy, candy!" I turned an aisle and saw him, Callan, unloading pallets in a worn store vest. Face thinner, beard patchy, eyes tired. Our gazes locked for a second. Something passed across his face. Shame, regret, maybe relief that I looked happy. I gave him a small nod. No anger, no triumph. Just acknowledgement that we had both survived different versions of the same storm. I turned the corner, took Idris's hand, and kept walking. The past stayed behind me exactly where it belonged. Some nights when the house is finally quiet, Cairo asleep with her little arms flung above her head, Idris snoring softly on his side of the bed, Midnight the cat curled at my feet, I sit by the living room window with a cup of chamomile tea and let my mind drift back. Not to wallow, not anymore. Just to look at the road I walked and marvel at how far it brought me. I think about that New Year's Eve, the smell of roast duck and candied yams, the twinkle of garland lights outside, the whistle of Callan's belt cutting through the air. I think about the moment something inside me crunched, like thin ice, and refused to break. I think about pressing play on that remote, watching 20 faces freeze as the truth spilled across the screen. I think about walking out into the cold with one suitcase and no plan except forward. Do I regret anything? No, not the years of silence I gave them, not the night I finally spoke, not the divorce, not the flash drive, not even the pain, because every sting and scar taught me the same fierce lesson. Never again will I let anyone wipe their feet on my soul. Silence is not always golden. Sometimes silence is slow suicide. To forgive does not mean to forget. To forgive means to release the grip the past has on your future. I forgave them, not for their sake, but for mine. I refused to drag that suitcase of grievances through my new life. I set it down so my hands would be free to hold my daughter, to link fingers with my husband, to turn pages in books that make me think and laugh and cry in all the right ways. Now I have everything I once prayed for, and more than I dared to dream back when I was shrinking myself to fit someone else's house. I have Idris, who looks at me like I hung the moon and still teases me about oversalting the grits. He is steady, kind, funny, and unafraid to call his own mother out when she oversteps, which she rarely does, because he set boundaries long ago. We argue about silly things, whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher, whether the thermostat should be 71 or 72, and we make up on the balcony with coffee, and kisses while the sun comes up over Atlanta. I have Cairo, our loud, bright, unstoppable daughter. She is 3 now. With wild curls, she refuses to let anyone tame, and a laugh that starts in her belly and fills every room. She calls midnight Mimi, insists on helping me cook by dumping extra flour on the floor, and falls asleep every night clutching the stuffed giraffe Idris won for her at the state fair. When she runs to me with sticky hands and says, "Mama, up," my heart feels too big for my chest. This is the love I waited for, not the quiet conditional kind I once settled for. I have work that excites me. Head of marketing at the agency, leading a small team of creative, sharp people who respect my ideas. My salary crossed 6 figures comfortably, and last year I got a bonus big enough to pay off the last of my student loans. I mentor younger Black women starting out in the industry, the way I wish someone had mentored me when I was too busy surviving to dream. I have friends, real ones. Nia, who held me together that first night and still hosts Sunday brunches where we eat too much and talk about everything. The book club sisters who text memes at 2 a.m. and show up with wine when life gets heavy. A community that sees me, hears me, celebrates me. I have small joys that feel enormous. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market on the Beltline, Cairo riding on Idris's shoulders, pointing at every dog we pass. Sunday pancakes shaped like wonky hearts. Evening walks where we let Cairo lead and end up circling the same block 3 times. Because she insists that squirrels need goodnight kisses. Midnight sprawled across my laptop when I try to work from home. Idris's hand on the small of my back when we stand at the sink doing dishes together. I have peace, deep, bone-level peace. No one bursts into my kitchen to criticize how I chop onions. No one questions my worth at midnight on a holiday. No one hangs a belt on the wall as a threat. Sometimes the past still brushes against me in quiet ways. A year ago, I took Cairo to the pediatrician for her routine shots. In the waiting room sat Kina, thinner than I remembered. Dark circles under her eyes, holding her son's hand as he flipped through a picture book. When she looked up and saw me, her face softened in recognition. "Zariah," she said quietly. We talked, awkward at first, then easier. She had moved back to Atlanta after things fell apart in Houston. The new man had been worse than Timaine. Now she rented a small apartment in College Park, worked as an online store manager for $45,000 a year, and was raising her boy alone. Timaine was still incarcerated. Mother Odessa remained in long-term care, lucid some days, lost on others. Colin sent money when he could. Kina's eyes filled when she looked at Cairo laughing in my lap. "You did it," she whispered. "You got out and built something beautiful." Then, softer, "Forgive me for back then, for what I said that night. I was jealous and blind and, God, I was cruel." I squeezed her hand. "I forgave you a long time ago." She started to pull out her wallet. Pride, I knew, but I slipped $500 into her purse anyway when she wasn't looking. "For his medicine," I said later. "Or ice cream. Whatever he needs." She cried in the parking lot. I didn't. I just hugged her and walked away feeling lighter. The encounter with Kaylin at Costco still sits gently in my memory. No drama, no words. Just a nod across the aisle. 2 people who once shared a life, now living entirely separate ones. He looked tired but sober, steady. I hope he found some peace too. I don't need to know. Our stories diverged that night, and that's enough. People sometimes ask, friends who heard the gossip version, if I ever think about revenge. Was exposing the video revenge? Was making sure Mr. Otis showed it to Kalan revenge? No. It was justice for the girl who spent 5 years making herself small. It was protection for the woman I was becoming. Revenge would have meant staying bitter, checking their downfall like a scoreboard, wishing them worse. I didn't need that. Their own choices handed them consequences heavy enough. I just walked away and built upward. After any storm, the calm comes. No matter how long or dark the tunnel, there is always light at the end, if you keep moving. If you refuse to sit down in the darkness and call it home. You are never as alone as you feel in the worst moments. There is always a Nia with a kettle at 3 a.m., always a Dr. Renee with a quiet office and wise words, always a future Idris who will love you without conditions, always a tiny Cairo waiting to be born and teach you what fierce love really means. And the belt? I hope they threw it away. I never asked. I didn't need to. My life is full of softer things now. Cairo's blanket, Idris's hand, midnight's purr, the sound of laughter echoing down the hallway of a home that belongs to us. That New Year's Eve was the end of one story and the beginning of this one. And this one is mine. Completely, beautifully, finally.